How's it going, guys? So, as you know, if you're following the liturgical season, depending on where you live, either today, Sunday, or this past Thursday, in some parts of the United States, is the Feast of the Ascension, when our blessed Lord, after having taken on flesh, after having been crucified and risen from the dead, took our human nature and brought it up to heaven. The first time that, in a sense, one of our own went up to heaven. And our Lord was like us in all things except that he didn't sin. And so, after the struggles he went through in his earthly life, after having gone through the cross and going through tremendous suffering, he went up to heaven. And he is constantly interceding for us. I think a lot of us, when we go through life, there are times that we might experience shame about our bodies, shame about our past, shame about many different things. But on this day, our Lord, after having gone through all the many different types of pain that we go through, he went up to heaven. And God can transform us too. We can forget that we are God's children. We can forget that we are his, that we are his beloved. And it's in those times that we have to double down on our faith and on our trust. That if there is any shame that we are dealing with, that we offer it to God, who, though he experienced shame on the cross, even though he experienced shame when he was scourged at the pillar, that he rose again, and that he rose again in a glorified body, and that we too, if we are faithful to him, will one day rise again with glorified bodies. God is so good. God is so amazing that even though he didn't sin, he is like us in so many ways. And it's hard to fathom that he decided even to take on flesh in the first place. But he did it so that he can say that he's been there, that he knows what it's like. And even though he didn't sin, he experienced the effects of sin, in the sense that he experienced being objectified. He experienced being hurt. He experienced so much pain. And he even experienced just being tired, being hungry, being thirsty, being rejected. And after having surrendered all to the Father on the cross and giving up his spirit, he was glorified by the Father with a resurrected body. because he did not lose trust in the Father. So on this day, or during this period of time, for those of us, especially if we live in Pennsylvania, who have already celebrated the Ascension, let's rejoice in the fact that Jesus, who is God and man, was crucified, rose again, and ascended into heaven, and that he will give us the strength to overcome our shame if we surrender to him. Because he is such an amazing God. He knows everything about us. We are his beloved. Even the number of our hairs is counted by him. And no matter what struggles we might have, he's already experienced them. And he's able to guide us by his own example of patience, of waiting for the Lord to work. And he will give us the grace to, as the Serenity Prayer says, to change the things we can, and to have the wisdom to know the difference between what we can change and what we cannot change. And he will guide us every step of the way. He will help us to heal. He will help us to overcome whatever sins we're dealing with. And if we don't desire to give up sin, if we at least turn to him for the grace to desire, or for the desire to give up sin, and have an open heart to the idea that what he has to offer is so much better than what we could think is good for us, that he will help us with that too. But we just have to say those words that he said on the cross: Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. So let's turn to him, trusting that he knows what is going on in our lives, and he wants us to win. God bless.